Hello everyone. In today's video, I bring you an exciting and surprising story. We are going to meet Dr. Benjamin Montgomery, an orthopedic surgeon who, during a family party in Austin, Texas, faced a brush with death when he was struck by lightning and experienced a near-death experience that challenged all limits of consciousness. What he experienced, from the separation of his body to the vision of a river of light and the miraculous intervention of a nurse, will leave you speechless and make you reflect on the real meaning of life. So, before we start, leave your subscribe to the channel and activate the bell so you don't miss any content like this, as this intense and mystical journey promises to shake your beliefs and touch your heart. My name is Dr. Benjamin Montgomery. I have always been driven by a passion for medicine and the belief that science could explain the mysteries of life. However, that afternoon in Austin, Texas, I realized that there are experiences that defy logical explanation. As I prepared for yet another family gathering, I felt a subtle, almost imperceptible nervousness that I attributed to the excitement of the day. Walking with firm and determined steps, he maintained an aura of security, even though he knew that life sometimes surprises with unthinkable moments. With each smile exchanged and each brief hug, I was reminded of why I chose medicine: the ability to touch lives and face human fragility. However, that day, that familiarity was put to the test. The excited voices of my relatives resounded as I observed the details of each face, each gesture, and in the midst of this interaction, an inner silence began to form, as if a premonition was telling me that something extraordinary was about to happen. I had no idea that by relating this story, I would be exposing one of the most transformative moments of my existence, something that would forever change my understanding of life and death. That same afternoon, the surrounding environment seemed to carry a promise of perfection and harmony. The pavilion, strategically positioned on the edge of a serene lake, exuded an air of festivity and familiarity. As families settled down and laughter spread, the place exuded tranquility and natural beauty, reflecting the soft light of the sun that still insisted on shining. However, as the hours passed, the weather, which was once the emblem of a perfect day, began to transform in subtle but unsettling ways. The sky, previously clear, was gradually swallowed by dense, heavy clouds that accumulated quickly, as if they were preparing an unexpected scenario for what would come next. Lively conversations and laughter mingled with the distant sound of the wind that began to whisper through the trees, foreshadowing the approach of a storm. Some relatives talked among themselves, with a tone of slight apprehension, about how the sudden change in the weather might affect the event, but most maintained the spirit of celebration, confident that small setbacks were just part of the magic of a day outdoors. I walked around, observing the details of the pavilion, the gentle waves that caressed the lakeshore and the clouds that formed on the horizon, as the atmosphere changed imperceptibly, setting the stage for an event that could never be anticipated. The contrast between the initial beauty of the day and the sudden, almost silent change in the weather created a subtle tension that spread through the air. The first signs that something was about to happen came in the form of a colder wind and a light that suddenly was not as warm and welcoming as before. This duality, the mix of the serene environment with the imminence of an unexpected event, added a layer of mystery and apprehension to that scenario, marking the beginning of an experience that would defy all expectations. The sound of the crash echoed deafeningly, as if the universe itself was announcing a rupture in the fabric of reality. Just as I finished the conversation with my mother, I felt an intense energy emanating from the payphone. A blinding light, sudden and merciless, exploded in the air, and in a frozen second a bolt of lightning materialized before my eyes, striking me with a force that defied all comprehension. The sensation was of being thrown backwards, as if the impact knocked the air from my lungs, and I found myself falling heavily onto the pavilion's dirt floor. As I fell, I heard the confused and surprised screams of family members around me. "Benjamin!" Someone's voice echoed, filled with panic as I lost myself in a whirlwind of sensations. The shock of impact stunned me, and for a brief moment, time seemed to slow down. Amidst the confusion, I noticed the strange mixture of physical pain and an almost surreal feeling of detachment, as if my mind was detaching from my body. The edges of my vision became blurred as reality disintegrated into a mosaic of disjointed colors and sounds. The phone, which moments before was just an ordinary object, now seemed like a portal of evil energy, responsible for the inexplicable phenomenon. While my thoughts were confused, the voice of a relative continued to shout in the distance, trying to reach the thin thread of reason that I still possessed. "Keep with us, Ben," was the desperate plea that mixed with the sound of thunder. This sudden and brutal explosion of light and energy marked the beginning of an experience that would defy all known laws of my world, leaving me teetering between consciousness and emptiness. The impact was not only physical, but also a shock to my soul. For moments that seemed eternal, the reality around me transformed into a sequence of distorted images and intense emotions, foreshadowing the beginning of a journey that would forever change my perception of existence. The feeling of helplessness was instantaneous. As I lay on the ground, something extraordinary began to happen. My consciousness seemed to gradually and inevitably slip away, as if an invisible thread was pulling every fragment of me away. I felt a lightness I had never experienced, a freedom that made me float above the chaos around me. Amidst the whirlwind of colors and sounds, my mind achieved surprising clarity. It was as if each thought unfolded, revealing memories and emotions that I had previously kept dormant. This can't be happening. Am I really out of my body? I thought, as I watched in amazement as the image of myself dissolved, piece by piece, into a blinding glow. The sight was both beautiful and terrifying. My arms, my legs, even the features of my face turned into particles of light which dispersed throughout the environment like stardust. At the same time, a feeling of peace invaded my being, and that transformation, however inexplicable it was, carried with it a promise of transcendence. As my perception expanded, I was able to perceive the delicacy of details that previously went unnoticed. The distant sound of laughter, the whisper of the wind, and even the murmur of lightning that now made up the symphony of that moment. In one of these moments of introspection, my internal voice, almost like a divine whisper, repeated, "Everything is part of a cycle, a dance between matter and energy." This reflection brought me unexpected comfort, even though survival instincts fought to keep me connected to life. My soul, now free from the bonds of the body, found itself on a threshold between the known and the unknown, where each sensation intensified and each memory gained new meaning. It was a deeply personal experience, marked by a mix of fear and fascination, where the border between physical existence and immaterial essence became tenuous and almost imperceptible. Upon regaining awareness of what seemed to be an ethereal state, I took the first steps towards a floating staircase that rose in the middle of a space where time seemed to have lost its meaning. Each step I climbed was like a portal to a parallel universe, where colors took on a life of their own and gravity became a mere suggestion. As I began this journey, I felt like I was leaving the weight of my body behind, floating in a sea of tranquility and light. As I climbed, my mind was filled with internal dialogues, reflections that mixed gratitude, fear, and curiosity about the unknown. Is this real, or am I dreaming? I thought, amazed and apprehensive at the surreal beauty that was unfolding. The scenery around me was dominated by a river of white light with bluish nuances, which ran smoothly, as if carrying the memories of the universe. Each drop of that light seemed to pulse with its own rhythm, following the beat of a heart that no longer belonged to my physical body. The feeling of transcending, of merging with that divine energy, was indescribable. I could hear snatches of conversations as if distant voices of loved ones echoed in a comforting whisper. "Everything is okay, Ben. You're safe." As I progressed, visions of past moments appeared in my mind, scenes of joy, of struggles overcome, and of unconditional love. It seemed as if each memory joined the luminous current, contributing to a flow of energy that carried the essence of everything I had ever experienced. In an instant, I realized that there was no separation between me and the universe. I was part of that cosmic dance, where every particle radiated love and compassion. "You will never be alone," whispered that energy in a tone that mixed comfort and hope, as I walked through that dimension that defied all the conventions of reality. The experience unfolded like a silent dialogue between my essence and infinity, confirming that even outside my body, I remained connected to everything and everyone, as if consciousness were an eternal link between the worlds. Suddenly, as I floated immersed in that dimension of light and peace, I noticed a presence approaching with urgency and firmness. That was when Serafina Cross appeared, like an angel emerging from the storm, her imposing and serene figure contrasting with the whirlwind of emotions I was experiencing. She looked at me with eyes that mixed determination and compassion, and without hesitation, she approached with sure steps even in the midst of the chaos that was taking place around her. "Ben, hold on tight. I'm here with you," she said in a calm but urgent voice as her hands prepared to act. Even in that state of almost unconsciousness, I heard his words as if they echoed directly in my soul, with a dexterity that only those who live the call of life could possess. She began to perform chest compressions, her rhythmic movement seeming to synchronize with the pulse of existence itself. His every touch was like a reminder that despite all the transformation I was experiencing, the essence of life still pulsed strong within me. "You can't leave, Ben. There's still so much to live for," she murmured as she firmly and carefully applied each compression. The feeling of his presence was at the same time comforting and vital, a tangible link between the material world and that universe of light that I was beginning to know. Amid the muffled sound of screams and the tumult of glances that followed one another, I realized that this gesture was not just a medical intervention. It was a demonstration of faith and love, a silent plea for my consciousness to remain anchored to life. Serafina's touch, charged with an almost palpable energy, seemed to drive my scattered particles back to what was left of my body. "Don't give up, Ben. You're stronger than you know," she insisted, as if each word could stitch together the fragmented parts of my existence. In the midst of this surreal scenario, where the line between life and death became tenuous, that nurse's intervention appeared not only as an act of urgency, but as a true miracle, a call that reaffirmed the continuity of existence even in moments of greatest despair. Suddenly, as I floated immersed in that dimension of light and peace, I noticed a presence approaching with urgency and firmness. That's when Serafina Cross appeared, like an angel emerging from the storm. His imposing and serene figure contrasted with the whirlwind of emotions I was experiencing, and his eyes mixed determination with deep compassion. Without hesitation, she advanced with sure steps, even in the face of the chaos around her. "Ben, hold on tight, I'm here with you," she said in a calm yet urgent voice. Her hands prepared to act as she approached, and even in that almost ethereal state, her words echoed directly into my soul. With a dexterity that only those who live the call of life could have, she began chest compressions, rhythmic movements that seemed synchronized with the pulse of existence itself. His every touch served as a reminder that, despite the transformation I was experiencing, the essence of life still pulsed strongly within me. "You can't leave, Ben. There's still so much to live for," she murmured as she applied each compression firmly and carefully. Amid the muffled sound of screams and the tumult of lightning that followed one another, I realized that his gesture was not just a medical intervention, but a demonstration of faith and love, a silent appeal for my consciousness to remain anchored to life. Serafina's touch, filled with an almost palpable energy, drove my scattered particles back to what was left of my body. Her every word, imbued with hope, seemed to stitch together the fragmented parts of my existence, reaffirming that, even when the line between life and death becomes blurred, there is always a link that keeps us connected to the continuity of existence. The return to reality was abrupt and painful. As I opened my eyes, I felt a sharp weight in my chest and a stab of pain coursing through every inch of my body, reminding me that the phenomenon had not just been a hallucination, but a physical event. As I tried to understand what had happened, my mind oscillated between the fog of trauma and the clarity of vivid memories. "Ben, you're with us. Can you hear us?" I heard someone's voice, drowned out by the hum of my own labored breathing. Still feeling the space around me, I felt the marks of the impact, bruises, a tingling sensation and a discomfort that made me feel as if every fiber of my being was crying out for help. The environment, once filled with light and hope, was now permeated with the rawness of reality. I tried to move, but each movement was accompanied by a poignant reminder of my weakened physical state. "You need to focus, Ben. Take a deep breath," my internal voice murmured, in a desperate attempt to calm the internal storm that was brewing. Amidst the pain, small snippets of dialogue from those present echoed around me, mixing concern and relief. "Stay strong, you will get through this. And we are here for you. Don't leave." These words, although simple, reverberated within me, momentarily relieving the weight that reality imposed. My mind, still fluctuating between consciousness and the sensation of another plane, struggled to reconcile the physical pain with the spiritual ecstasy I had experienced moments before. I saw shadows of light, memories of times when my soul seemed to dance freely, but was now swallowed by a harsh reality. Each sigh made me relive both the agony and the hope, as if the body was making a silent appeal for me to never forget how thin the line is between living and transcending. In an inner, barely perceptible whisper, a voice reminded me, "This is the price of life and also proof that you have survived the impossible." And between the pain and the admiration for the miracle of recovery, I realized that each physical sensation was an anchor that prevented me from definitively losing myself in that limbo between existence and oblivion. Upon regaining consciousness and perceiving the contours of reality, I was surrounded by a whirlwind of voices and gestures that demonstrated unwavering affection. My Uncle Jonathan Pierce, always the figure of authority and security, approached with an expression of deep concern. "Ben, you are strong. Stay with us," he said, trying to convey strength and stability with a tight hug, while his eyes reflected the relief at having me close by. Amid the sound of conversations and troubled expressions, Evelyn Reed, with her characteristic sensitivity, held my hand, silently conveying that despite the pain, I was not alone. "You've always been our pillar, Ben. Don't give up now," he whispered tenderly, his words softening the agony of the moment. Marcus Talbot, whose loyalty was evident in every gesture, stood nearby, watching intently and providing assistance so that I could recover. He said firmly, but in an emotionally charged voice, "We're here for you, friend. You're going to get through this, and we're going to support you every step of the way." These statements were not mere advice, but a genuine expression of the love and commitment that everyone present shared at that critical moment. The symphony of voices intertwined with the sound of the environment, creating a chorus of encouragement and solidarity that made me feel the warmth and strength of family. Every word, every gesture was a reminder that, even in the darkest moments, unity and love can be the anchor that keeps us connected to life. As I tried to find balance between pain and hope, my family members' expressions turned into beacons that illuminated the path back to existence. In this tangle of feelings, I realized that the support of my loved ones was not just a response to my physical emergency, but also a powerful manifestation of our emotional connection, something that transcended the mere biological aspect of survival. Between tight hugs and words full of affection, I felt that each one of them was willing to fight with me against adversity, making recovery a collective effort of love and overcoming. The pain and miracle of recovery turned over time into a profound lesson that resonated with every fiber of my being. Amid the physical scars and emotional scars of that fateful day, I discovered that the true value of life lies in how we face the darkest moments. In long conversations with colleagues and friends, I realized that my experience was not just an isolated event, but a call to reevaluate priorities and embrace each moment with gratitude and courage. The memory of how my consciousness detached itself and merged with a universe of light taught me that existence is a delicate dance between the finite and the infinite, and that, even in the face of the abyss of death, the essence remains intact and resplendent. As time passed and the wounds healed, I immersed myself in reflections that led me to value not only the moments of joy, but also the adversities that, by a quirk of fate, showed me the fragility of life. Every beat of my heart became a celebration of continuity, a reminder that, no matter how thin the line between existing and transcending, we are graced with the chance to start over, to transform pain into learning and uncertainty into hope. I understood that Serafina's intervention and the unconditional support of my loved ones were symbols of a universe that insists on keeping us together, even when everything seems to fall apart. Today, I carry within me not only the physical scars of that day, but also the wisdom that each experience, no matter how terrible, can be the seed of an inner transformation. From that moment on, I decided to live more intensely, with a heart open to love and with a renewed faith in the continuity of consciousness. Life, in all its complexity, proved to be a precious gift, where each breath is a tribute to the ability to overcome, learn, and reinvent oneself. From that day on, the experience turned into a silent call for a profound change in the way I lived. After long conversations with colleagues, friends, and family, I was compelled to rethink what it really meant to be alive. Amid the scars that the accident had left, both visible and invisible, emerged the conviction that each heartbeat was a celebration, a tribute to resilience and the preciousness of existence. During moments of introspection, I relived the moment in which I felt my essence separate and, simultaneously, merge with that immense river of light. I remember one night, sitting alone on the terrace at home, looking at the stars and reflecting. Every pain, every tear has its value. They are the bridges that connect me to a deeper reality, where life and death dance together. These words echoed in my mind, while the night breeze brought with it the calm and the whisper of loved ones who somehow still accompanied me. The scars, both physical and emotional, became living reminders of the miracle of having returned, of the power of love and the unshakable strength of family solidarity. Each new day found me more aware of the fragility of moments, and at the same time, the immense capacity for transformation they carried. I then decided to live more intensely, embracing not only the moments of joy but also the challenges, as I knew that the true beauty of life lies precisely in overcoming. In conversations with Serafina, Jonathan, Evelyn, and Marcus, I learned that adversity was not an enemy, but a teacher who silently revealed the depth of our existence and the continuity of consciousness that keeps us connected. Today, every breath reminds me that life is a continuous opportunity to be reborn, to transform pain into learning and uncertainty into hope. The experience of that day remains a vivid, life-changing memory, propelling me forward with an open heart and a renewed faith in the beauty of the unknown. If you liked this beautiful spiritual testimony, leave a like, comment on your impressions, subscribe to the channel, and don't forget to activate the notification bell to watch each new video and help us spread this message to a greater number of people. Until next time.